Hello, welcome. Dr. Sushma Singh this side. Today in Unit 8, Census Perspective, we are going to start this lecture with the topic The Impact of the Census on a Sociological Understanding of Caste. Historically, anthropology and demography have been closely intertwined. As Cohen noted, it would not be an exaggeration to say that down until 1950, scholars and scientists' views on the nature, structure, and functioning of the Indian caste system were shaped mainly by the data and conceptions growing out of the census operations. In large part, this was due to the fact that the most of the works on the caste system from 1880 to 1950 were written by officials who had at some point been census superintendents, either for India or for a province. The census itself provided an opportunity for state-funded research on ethnological data at a time when there were few opportunities for professional anthropologists. For a list of anthropological studies conducted as a part of the census, including monographs on particular caste and tribes, surveys of fairs, festival, linguistic studies, and social economic surveys of village and urban areas. Yet, by 1941, the Census Commissioner was advocating the separation of anthropology from the census to the mutual advantage of the both. There exists a widespread impression that the main object of the Indian census is anthropological. One unfortunate result of this excessive association of the census and anthropology was to obscure the basic importance of the countrywide determination, which so far the census was the only means of securing. It must also have affected adversely the proper consideration and financing of anthropological work in India. Such work would be carried out year in and year out and not forced into the constructed period of a 10-year exclusively. One outcome of the census need for identifiable criteria at both the basic level and larger aggregations was, as Pant puts it, a substantialization of the caste. A caste became a unit made up of name, a number of members, physical characteristics, cultural practices, territory occupied, in short, by the sum of all the information about a social group that had been collected over a number of surveys and from a variety of responses whose social points of view were not necessarily common. The effect of this on the bulk of studies of caste has been unmistakable, with considerable debate on the origin of the caste system, race, occupation, cultural and economic explanation. The defining the characteristics of caste, endogamy, restrictions and commensality, the effective unit of caste, subcaste, caste culture, varna, the principles underlying caste ranking, purity, pollution, interactional, mobility within and against the caste system, the concept of the Sanskritization, dominant caste, emulation, westernization, affirming indices, value, etc. Whether caste is specific to India or whether it is a limited for a stratification, and whether resistance to caste can only take place within its own categories or can take place against the caste system as a whole. In all these, existing castes are taken as given unit. What we need instead are studies that examine the way caste as a system changes in response to wider political, economic and historical development. Now let us move to the next point, the debate over inclusion of caste in the census. Like all administrative measures, a caste enumeration is seen as having advantages and disadvantages for different groups of people. Opponents of the caste enumeration point to the past experience of mobilization over caste in the census and the current context of the caste antagonism to argue that a fresh enumeration would lead to fresh mobilization and a further hardening of the caste identities. Such mobilization, it is also argued, would spoil the quality of data. Indeed, the data on scheduled caste and scheduled tribe which the census collects is already subject to the political interference. Singh noted that there are about 1,000 cases pending in the court filed by communities keen to get SC and ST status to avail of reservations. In other arena, however, they lay claim to higher ritual status. Roy Burman, 1998, on fraudulent returns in the context of reservation. Some sociologists have also argued that the caste data is particularly difficult to collect given the multiplicity of names and the contextual manner in which the terms are used, and that these problems had been exacerbated with all the changes that have taken place due to the migration, modern employment practices, intercaste marriages, etc. The nation as a whole would thus lose out in terms of cost incurred, the rise in social conflict, and the availability of the seemingly scientific but in fact unreliable data. Supporters of the caste enumeration argue that the refusal to measure caste is a classical case of upper caste interest, masquerading as the national or universal interest. Even in 1948, when a comprehensive caste return was abandoned, there was some dissenting voices. For instance, P.S. Deshmukh argued, it is too early to expect that people will agree to the abolition of the caste. These very people now wish to continue their exploitation in the name of no caste. Census operations are very important, and for all people they serve as an excellent index to ascertain the progress they have made from time to time. The major demand for the caste census has come from backward class commission, troubled by the lack of data with which to carry out their task. Post-independence, the term other backward class OBCs has become popular and is taken to refer to those groups which are not scheduled caste or tribe but which are still seen to suffer from social and educational backwardness. Although the Constitution uses the term classes, this has generally been understood to mean certain castes. In many ways, the dilemma over the whether or not to have caste returns in the census is reflected in parallel debates on how to define backwardness, solely in terms of caste or some economic criteria. For instance, the chairman of the first Backward Class Commission, which identified backward classes by caste, later rejected its recommendations, arguing that the caste test of backwardness was inimical to the criteria of a casteless society, and recommending in its place residential, economic, educational, and cultural criteria of backwardness. The Backward Classes Commission are required to identify lists of backward classes for their states. In order to implement reservation in jobs and educational institutions and welfare schemes. In the absence of census data, the commissions have extrapolated from 1931 census data. Several of them have also conducted their own sample survey, collected data from the educational institutions and government offices, and invited submission by individuals and groups. While much of this secondary data would continue to be needed, the task would be made much easier with updated census data. Census data, it is argued, would be useful in drawing up fresh list of OBC, for admitting new caste into the list and graduating others out. Further, it might be enable proportional representation for disadvantaged caste within the reservation quota. Graduation out of a beneficiary list, however, is politically very difficult, and almost no state government has been successful in practice. The losers in this process tend to be the smaller caste without much political clout. Supporters of the caste numeration also claim that it would be useful in planning to target concentrations of backward groups. One would need block level or district level data, since this is the level at which the decisions about the locating schools or primary health center is made. However, again, there is a doubtful link between the existence of such data and actual services provided. While there are few studies of how local governments work, the studies available suggest that the placing of school is decided by local powerful groups and not need. P. Sainath, for example, has shown how upper caste always make sure the village school is situated in one of their hamlets, since that ensures their control over polling. Similarly, the absence of facilities in tribal areas, despite the data on scheduled tribes being available, suggests that it is not lack of data which must be blamed, but other factors. On the other hand, caste census data can play a useful role in creating public awareness and opinion about the systematic lack of facilities for certain groups. While one does not need to know the caste of a citizen or the caste layout of a village in order to make sure that everyone is provided with basic services, in a situation where the government has claimed to have made universal provision, this data can be useful. Despite the presence of the primary school in every village, census data show that certain castes are getting no education. This is cause of concern and possible mobilization. While opponents of the caste numeration emphasize its role in fomenting mobilization, hardening identities, supporters of caste numeration portray it as a move to challenge the status quo by highlighting inequalities and eventually eliminating caste. See also the very similar arguments in the US and UK context over the counting race and ethnicity in the census. While opponents of caste enumeration show unease with unmanageable public action, supporters display a rosy and naive view of the government and the use it makes of data. If census enumeration is to help at all the overturning caste, it will be because of public mobilization using the data thrown up and not because of the state. Rather than fearing mobilization per se, one's concern should be over what forms it takes. The challenge is really to ensure that such data are not manipulated by purely casteist parties or used to ghettos the polity. Larger version of material contains in this unit is presented in the articles The Indian Census, Identity and Inequality. Now let us conclude the unit. There is no denying that apparently simple enterprise of counting the characteristics of the Indian population undertaken by the British official for convenience in administration emerged as a powerful tool in political, cultural, and religious battles. Conducting a census is a political act in which sensitive information that has political repercussions is taken down. The census data have been put to many uses. The data have been used for drawing comparison between different communities and religious groups. The census data on the caste has immense potential to be analyzed in order to understand and address socio-economic problems, as well as to create the divisiveness between communities. The task before social scientists is to make use of data appropriately. Here we want to close this lecture, and we have come to the end of the unit. Thanks for listening.